Kimberly Amaya, and welcome to the first episode of the Beyond Her podcast. This podcast is for me to selfishly interview people who have made an impact on my life and hopefully share their stories and inspire some of you guys with their journeys and what they've taught me along the way too. Today's episode, I'm super excited for this one. I have my high school teacher who made a huge impact on me. I have her here across from me, Miss Wright, and I'm sure everyone's going to look at this podcast and be like, I know who Miss Wright is. You're pretty popular.
Thank you.
So, Miss Wright, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
My name is Tara Wright. I am a special ed teacher for Grant High School. I've worked at Grant for 15 years and have had a lot of children come through.
Yeah.
And I do consider you one of them. So.
Awesome. Okay, well, you have to elaborate because you're like, oh, I'm like, this is my high school teacher. And then you're like, yeah, I'm a special ed teacher.
I grew up in Mansfield, Massachusetts. So I grew up outside of Boston. I moved to California when I was 22.
Oh, wow.
Me and my dad drove cross country. I came out here because I wanted to save the world. And I really wanted to work with like HIV and AIDS. But I needed more of a medical background, and I ended up getting a job in group homes.
Yeah.
Working with emotionally disturbed kids and kids with behavior problems. I've worked in group homes, level 14s, juvenile halls.
Wow.
Worked with teenage prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at an agency. Probably shouldn't name names. I worked in an agency that got taken over by another agency, and they ended up letting me go. And I was with that agency for like 7 years, and I was pretty devastated. And I started substitute teaching, and I just fell in love. And at about 32, I went back and got my credential to teach. So I now have a teaching credential, and I have made Grant like my home away from home.
Yeah.
So I am the class sponsor. I plan events. I plan proms.
Yeah.
I'm student council, and everything and anything I can do there for the kids, I do.
Yeah, for sure. I think you made a huge impact on many kids' lives that have gone through Grant High School. But let's take it back further. So you grew up in Boston, born and raised?
Born and raised.
Born and raised. How was that?
I loved it. I come from a very blessed family.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad are still married over 50 years.
Nice.
I have a sister who's a year older, a brother who's a year younger. My dad was a firefighter. My mom was a nursery school teacher. My sister, worked in business, and my brother's now a firefighter and fell in line with my sibling, like with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a Catholic high school. And
you went to a Catholic
I
high
went to
school?
a Catholic high school for 4 years. I went Catholic high school, and I was very shy in high school. I did a lot of stuff. I did like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I was a part of every committee, homecoming committees, and all of that. Like, I loved high school. I really enjoyed it. And then I went to the University of New Hampshire and got my social work degree, and I loved it there too. And even there, I did like a lot of like outreach. I was a resident assistant, so I kind of like was a big sister to the kids on the floor.
Wow.
I worked in the health services, and I ran a Narcotics Anonymous for kids who had parents who were like drug abusers and Alcohol Anonymous, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a child of an alcoholic, but like I ran a support group for it.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So even like in my 20s, I was just drawn to helping.
Yeah. What do you think draws that like out of you?
Like we're both cancers.
Yeah.
So, I'm 48, not married, no children, and I just think I've always just enjoyed taking care of people, and it could be my codependency in like wanting to take care of people. So I definitely, as much as I give, I get back.
Yeah.
So it's rewarding for me. Like it heals my soul, and and I just feel like I've lived a very blessed and charmed life.
Yeah.
So I think that I've lived that way because I'm able to help take care of people who might need it.
For sure.
In certain times.
That takes a really special, because that's a lot of time that you pour back into other people.
It is. But I think the older I've become, the more I've learned how to like scale back and use my own resources to make sure that I take time for myself. And I surround myself with incredible people. Like I have an incredible family. I have incredible friend network out here that is like family. So I think that for me personally, I'm able to give because there's a lot of people around me who like support me and help me.
That's good. Yeah, it's definitely important to have a good support pillar, especially when you're pouring so much out into the world. Like to have people to pour back into you is really, really important too. Rest and recharge. So you moved to California at 22?
Yes.
What year was that?
Oh God, Kimberly. Like, you're making a teacher do math who's not a math teacher. So what, it's 2023? So
what year was that, guys?
I dropped out.
I'm like, I'm too pretty to do math.
20 years ago?
Yeah.
20 years ago.
In 2003.
So
you're 48, moved here at 22.
At 22.
Oh, so
Gosh,
26
Right?
years.
Okay.
26.
What year was
So
that?
I've been like 90.
God. Yeah, 90, yeah.
98?
Right after college.
1998?
Yep, 1998.
How was California back in 1998?
It was completely different. But I mean, my 20s, coming out here in my 20s, it was incredible.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I grew up very sheltered. I lived in a very white town, extremely white. You know, the big joke is I never met a Mexican until I moved to California, and I really hadn't. Like, I'd never met somebody. I've met, like, Latinos, like Cuban, Puerto Rican, but never, like, Peruvian. Love my Peruvians. Never Mexican. And, like, the big joke is, like, I really hadn't.
Yeah.
So it was a, I don't want to say culture shock because it was so much fun, and it was so exciting, and it was just, yeah, it was like really eye-opening for like a little white girl from Massachusetts.
Yeah. I felt the same way when I moved from Virginia. It was a culture shock for me. I mean, it was like Virginia, I didn't grow up so much in like a white town, but it's very open-minded and free living here. I remember my first day of high school, there was like a line of cholos lined up against the wall, and I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. It's my first day of high school. I'm a freshman, so it was definitely scary for me.
And I think I met you prior to the first day of school.
Yeah.
I remember your counselor called me and is like, oh, can this little baby please be in chair?
Did she ever tell you why she sent me to you?
No.
Okay.
No.
What was her name? The counselor?
Miss Colway.
Miss Colway. Okay, so it was because when we went and they were registering me and my brother, and they were looking at my brother's grades, and they were like, oh my God, she was like, oh my God, like, Frank, like, you're so smart, you're so gifted, yada, yada, yada. And then they pull out my records and they're like, what happened to you?
Oh, God.
I swear. And I just started bawling, crying. And she was just like, well, what do you like to do? And I was like, I used to cheer. And she's like, okay. And she like sent me to like the cheer house.
Yeah, you came down like teary-eyed, and I'm like, oh my God, this poor little baby, like from the East Coast, and I know Virginia from being there, so I'm like, oh, this country bumpkin. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just gonna take her in. And I think Jess was the coach at the time.
She was. Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're just gonna take her. She's like, we have tryouts, and I'm like, Jess, we're gonna take her.
Gonna take her. Yeah, I'm so glad you guys did, because I think cheer was definitely like a grounding place for me throughout high school. Throughout everything that I went through, and everything I went through, everything I put myself through in high school. But going back, 22 in California, you were a social worker already?
Yeah, I had my bachelor's in social work, and I came out and I moved out here with my friend Andrea, who she actually teaches at Grant now too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a full circle moment.
Miss Caruso. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
We went
that.
to college together.
Okay.
So we both work at Grant now, but she had started teaching before I even came out. And I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? And I applied at some places, and I got into like a 6-bed facility. And I remember being like 22 and working these group homes, and I had seen tragic things happen like throughout my life, but I think the first month I drove home crying like every day.
Oh,
like,
I can't imagine.
Just these girls' stories and what they'd gone through, and like they're no mom, and I'm like 23 years old, like tucking these kids in, taking them to doctor's appointment, and I'm like, oh my God. So I would like cry all the time, just devastated.
Is there a story that you can remember from your social worker days that you're like that like really like impacted you, or like you hold to this day?
So many.
I'm sure
there's so many. Like there's all of those kids, like, and I don't see any of them anymore, but they all just hold a special place in my heart. Like, there was a little girl whose uncles had her and, like, ended up putting her in her cage. And she would, like, bark at night because she would, like, regress to being a dog.
Oh, my gosh.
There was another little girl whose mom, like, sold her in Mexico and then ended up getting back across the border. And, like, the mom would still come around, and she was, like, still so in love with her mom. I'm like, this woman sold her, and she still wants to see her. And, you know, I just have to bite my tongue because it's her mom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was like, and leaving that job was really hard. And that's when I had moved on to Children of the Night, and then had done a bunch of other stuff, and then worked in another, like, level 12 facility where it was, like, taking in-home services.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going into the homes and helping parents and grandparents, a lot of grandparents, keep their kids and not have them go into the system. Because as much as the system gave a place for these kids, it was nowhere for kids. Like, it was just, you know, it was sad being there during the holidays with them, and, like, them not going home, and parents just constantly disappointing them.
Oh my gosh, my heart.
So it was, and you get desensitized. I think at, like, the age of 48, it's it's taken a lot to make me really, like, cry. Like, so through my 30s, a lot of times when you guys came to me with stories, I was just like, I was okay with it, and I wouldn't lose it, like, in front of you. And now that I'm, like, in my 50s, I'm like, oh, I'm, like, teary-eyed and crying more now. So, and I think that now kids in high school, just the kids that I work with now, it's just, I would never want to be a teenager in this day and age. It just sucks.
It is, yeah.
It's horrible.
It's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think, man, like, I'm so grateful for people like you who do jobs like that, because I couldn't imagine, because it takes an emotional toll on you. I mean, like, police officers, firefighters, doctors, hospital, where they see it all, the forefront, social workers, they see it all, forefront of it all. And I think to be able to, like, go home, how do you, like, switch that off for your family, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard. Have you seen that movie, The Sound of Freedom?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Hearing you talk about, like, the little girl whose mom was sold in Mexico, like, that's kind of like the premise of that movie. But they showed it in such, like, a beautiful light, in a way that it wasn't so graphic, but it showed you the reality of the world. And I'm like, this world is so cruel. So it's so, like, refreshing to know that there's still people out there that's their passion, is to help kids and everything. And I feel like, in a way, like, you becoming a high school teacher is still kind of like social work, you know?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think it was, like, the first month, I was like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like, just interacting with the kids. And even, like, as a sub, I remember I was subbing for, like, a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the principal at the time, Linda Eibach, is like, what are you going to do? She's like, are you going back for your master's in social work? Or are you going to teach? And I'm like, Linda, I'm, like, the worst teacher. And I still am. I don't think I'm a good teacher. When it comes to content, I'm horrible. You know, I do the best that I can. But I'm not like a Miss Caruso, who's incredible with her content, and, like, other teachers that, like, are really good with teaching kids about history and English and science. But I like to say that I teach life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you know, something that I enjoyed doing. Like, I might have, like, the smallest roster on campus, but more kids know me on campus than, like, many other staff members.
Yeah.
So, like, even as a sub, you know, Miss Eibach said to me, she's like, I can teach you how to teach. I can't teach you how to build bonds with these kids the way you do. She's like, you're a sub, and half the campus knows you more than, like, 75% of my teachers. She's like, it's not okay. She's like, but if you want to teach, like, let's get the ball rolling. And I did.
That's awesome. And you went straight into, like, special ed teaching? Or
I
like
went, yes, because I was doing because special ed was one of those, at the time, there was a need for special ed teachers. So she said, like, let's go the special ed route. And it was, like, almost easier to pass not pass the courses, but...
Why are you laughing, Paul?
The joke you made earlier, like, totally connected. Like, oh, this is my teacher. And, like, oh, I'm a special ed teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was my cheer advisor, just to clarify. I was not in her classroom.
And there were so many kids that, you know, I didn't have... I always said Grant is if you're a kid at Grant, you're one of my students.
Yeah.
Like whether or not you've sat in my classroom or you're on one of my rosters, like you're all my kids. I did not hold any bias against any of them. I would yell at all children equally. You know how much I love to yell.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite pastimes. It's out of love.
Yeah.
And it's been, I don't scare kids when I yell. I scare kids when I'm quiet. I think you know that.
Yeah.
So like when I get quiet, it's like scarier.
Yeah, for sure.
So special ed, it was one of the ones that was almost easier to get the credential. And I knew that I would have a job right away. Like Miss Ibach is like, if you get in this, I can get you in the door right now. So I just became a permanent sub there and then got my credential and I haven't left.
That's awesome. So you started at Grant?
I started at Grant.
And you're still at Grant.
I'm still
How many
at
years
Grant.
have you been at Grant for?
It's 15 now.
15 years. That is crazy.
Yes.
A lot of people don't stay at jobs that long anymore.
No, and a lot of people, like, they say, like, with schools, it's good to, like, go somewhere else and, you know, but I just, Grant, I don't feel like I can do what I do if I move to another school. I've had siblings, you know, I mean, you and Frankie. There's so many kids that have come through that, you know, have like, I know you because of my cousin. Like, they'll show up in my room, be like, my cousin told me I need to come see you. And I'm like, then your cousin's smart.
Yeah.
So, you know, they know that there's somebody there to, like, take care of them. And I love that. Like, I love that I have had, like, families and that have come through Grants. And I'm now going to weddings and baby showers.
How does
Yeah.
that make you feel, watching your kids grow? Because I'm sure, like you said, like, they're your babies. Like, you nurture them, you watch them grow up, and then you're at their baby shower and their weddings. Like,
It's surreal sometimes because, like you said, like, you know, mothers have, like, an unconditional love for their kids. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm a mother, I'm in a mother sense or whatever, but I definitely feel for certain kids. And, you know, I can sit here and pretend I don't have my favorites. We all know I've had my favorites.
Yes.
Like, you know, and it's just a favorite at that time. It's who needs me the most. And I think, like, you know, I saw my mother do that. Like, I wasn't, we were favorites at different times that we needed her the most. And so, you know, there's definitely kids who drove me up a wall. You were one of them. And your little clique. And I still love all of you, and I might not talk to everybody, but, like, any time that, you know, I would get a phone call, I would be there. So, like, going to the weddings and, like, seeing what they've accomplished and just knowing that I was, like, just a piece of that journey is, like, you know, incredible.
yeah.
You know, and then I even love the ones that come back and be like, oh, this girl, like, their daughters. I love when the daughters give them, can I swear?
Yeah.
Hell. I love
Yeah.
when they give them hell. I'm like, can I swear?
Yeah, no, please do.
I love that. Like, it makes me so happy. Like, you deserve it.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
100% deserve it. So it's incredible to watch them continue in their journey.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's really
You
nice.
play a huge role at Grant High School. Like, humongous. Like, you take on not only all the students, but all of the events, too, you run. Like, I feel like your name is on everything at Grant High School.
It's because I'm a control freak.
I don't know how you do it, but I'm so glad you do because, like you said, like, this generation right now and, like, with the way the world's set up, like, it's hard, you know? So, like, to have someone like you, like, to help people go through, like, the 4 years of high school is definitely crucial because I know when I was in high school, I was not the best, most, like, star student, but having you, like, always, like, keeping me in check and, you know, calling me out on my shit, and I don't think I appreciated it enough then, but definitely now growing back and looking back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have, like, I don't know what I would have done, like, if I didn't have Miss Wright or Jess, you know, because I was hell. Like, I was like
and
a
you
tornado.
weren't even that bad. Like, you were.
You don't
not-
think so? I feel
no,
like I was
I don't
over-
think you're as bad as some of the ones that I've gone through. Because
Okay.
at least with you, I think that you also, like, your level of respect for me was good. Like, even though I think there was that, like, love fair. So, like I was telling you that story, how, like, my number one rule is, like, if you get in trouble, You let me know before anyone else tells me.
That's
and
so
I remember
funny.
you running through the door at the bungalows, and like Ellison was like in the back, like laughing because he like knew what you were doing, and you're like, okay, she's saying, and you're like, please let me tell her, before you do.
That is so funny.
And you were like out of breath because you ran from like the 700s or something over to my classroom just to let me know that you got in trouble
Yeah.
before he could tell me.
I love how you brought that story up, because that just popped up another question in my head, is that you see all these videos of like public school teachers going through hell with their students, and you're like, well, I didn't go through that with you because there was a level of respect. Is that something that you struggle with now, like more than ever, you think, or no?
Other teachers, the thing I struggle with is like, we're in the cancel culture. We're in such a like one wrong move. Like we have all of these like videos, like, you're not supposed to hug the children. They're not supposed to have your phone number. You're not supposed to social media. And it's like, I think I would rather lose my job than not hug a child who I know needs a hug. Like, so, I mean, I have kids that come back and ask for a hug because I'm just like, so there's no way. I would rather lose my job than like let that happen. And I understand why it's there. And like in any profession, there's good teachers, there's bad teachers. There's teachers who are good with content, and there's good with teachers who build rapport. But I think you can't be effective as a teacher if you don't know how to have some kind of relationship with the kids. And I don't know that the kids are getting worse. I think the world is getting worse. I don't want to say that the kids are, because I still have like, I'm my little gang, MWG, Miss Wright's gang. I have all my little...
It's no longer Tata's Angels?
Well, we do have Tata's... Well, no, Tata's Angels, now the Jewish boys have taken that shirt, and they love Tata's Angels, and they want to make shirts out of it. I don't know if Miss McMurrin's going to let them, but...
They made us change our shirts. It said Heffa's, right? Or
Hey Heffa,
Hey
not Spirit. Yes, no, we still kept it though.
Oh,
I
yeah?
fought that one, yeah.
Oh, nice.
But they don't do it anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, Hey Heffa got Spirit, and then my name on the back. So, but I think that, we do still have the gangs in the schools.
Yeah.
But even like those kids respect me and like don't come at me a certain way.
So where do you think it comes from? Like, because I've seen kids, like teachers get pepper sprayed. Like, I don't know if you've seen that video, or like over like the phone. There's like crazy videos, and I'm like, I feel for these teachers, because a lot of people don't pour into students the way you do. Like, where are those kids being bred?
God, I'm so worried, like, saying stuff that's, like, going to get me fired. I've always been, like, I wish you would kind of mentality. And I think the kids kind of know, like, she's a little bit crazy. Yeah. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that, like, I'm a little bit crazy. Like, I will rip out my earrings and go toe-to-toe with you.
Yeah.
Like, I've always said it, like, I'll lose my job before I let you, like, disrespect me.
For sure.
And Terry and Jerry will take me home in a heartbeat. Like, I think because I have that ability to just know that I have, like, a really cushy place to fall if I do, that kids don't really try me. And I think the older you get, you also can't power struggle. Like, I don't know what's going on with that teacher or what's going on with that student. Like, it has to be more than that, just that one incident, because there's still kids who try me, but I also know, like, what happened to them. Did they eat that morning? Did somebody pass away? Did somebody, was it scary for them to walk to school? Like, are they putting up a front? Like, you just don't know what's going on in kids' lives, especially, like, in this day and age, and between the online bullying and the stories and just, like, the stuff that you guys have been able to see that I didn't see growing up. Like, just a very sheltered kind of life in a sense. And I also think I have more coping skills than, like, some teachers that come in and just sometimes you just have to lose a battle, and I don't think that sometimes I don't want to fault any of those teachers, because I don't know what they're going through, and we do have kids who are, like, emotionally disturbed, who, maybe might not be on the right meds, in the right therapy, and they don't, and teachers aren't trained to deal with, like, I was trained. My background is behavior. So I went from social work to teaching.
That's not required to as a
No,
teacher.
like, it's really not. Like, my behavior management, I dealt with, like, the worst of the worst kids. So I had that background prior to coming in. Like, I literally had gang members from, like, East LA
Yeah.
that I bonded with.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I knew how to do it. I knew what to say to them. You know, teenage prostitutes, those are the most manipulative. Like, those kids are the most damaged kids I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
And knowing how to deal with them, like, is huge. When I have a kid from Van Nuys who, mother just lost a job, or parents aren't documented, and they're, like, worried about picking up the phone because, they're not going to school, and it's almost easier than what I was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to have that background, and a lot of teachers don't. And unfortunately, teachers are being put in charge of kids' like social emotional well-being on top of like multiplication and division.
Yeah.
And even with the resources we have, it's just not enough. Like it's not enough. And I don't really know how to fix it, but unfortunately it's out there.
That's so crazy. If you could give advice to somebody coming into like the teaching space, fresh, what age did you start teaching? Like 20s? Or like mid-20s?
I was in my 30s.
30s?
I also was older too. Like, so I
Okay.
felt like I was like, I had lived life. I had gone through stuff.
Yeah.
So I definitely like, I have a lot of younger teachers coming in like in their 20s.
Yeah.
And their mentality frustrates me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, well, do you get paid for that? I'm like, no, I don't get paid for that.
Oh my gosh, that kills me.
No, I
hate people
impacted a
like that.
child's life today. I didn't get paid for it.
Mhm.
Like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't, and it's like, it's your worth, like, the self-worth comes through dollar signs, I guess. I have no idea.
Oh, for sure. Even like with our businesses right now, like I get employees all the time. Like they won't do more or less than what they get paid to do.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if that will ever. It's very rare to find people who willing to go above and beyond past like what their work is, because people no longer find purpose in what their work is. They're like, I'm here for the dollar, and that's why I tell people, I'm like, you will always cap out, because if you tie your time to money, like you'll always cap out and you'll always burn out faster than if you find purpose within what it is, your job that you're doing.
And you had said, you're like, I don't know how you do what you do. I don't know how I don't do what I do. Like, if I stopped doing it, I think, people are like, when are you going to stop? Like, it's so much, and it's stressful. It's stressful, and I give up a lot of myself. But it's like, when I stop doing that, then it's like, why am I doing teaching then? Like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Like, so everything I do is like, all the events I plan, I get to be with the kids. Like, I have my master's in administration. I could have gone on and become an assistant principal or principal. I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's more money. And people say more time. I put in just as much time as principals and admin, except for maybe our principal now, because she's crazy and doesn't sleep and is always working. But that's why I'll work for her.
Yeah.
Like, and it's also the people who, they'll work for you. And I think that's the kids see how much I put in, that's why they'll put in too.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they work for me, and that's why they respect me. That's why anything I need done, they're like, oh, we got you, Miss Wright.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the whole like quietly quitting kind of thing that's going on with like the 20-somethings, I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's weird. If you could give a fresh teacher advice, like what would you tell them?
I would tell them just to enjoy it. And if you stop enjoying it, stop doing it. Like, and that it, they say it all the time, like, a kid is not going to remember, when World War II was. But they're going to remember, like, that you gave them a granola bar that day, that you were the one person that smiled at them, that you genuinely asked them how they were, that you, like, gave them a card, that you said that their eye makeup looked pretty. Like, they'll remember that way longer than, like, any kind of fact that you're putting out in a book.
Wow.
So, I mean, and any teacher I tell, like, as long as you're impacting the kids' lives in some way, in a positive way, then you're doing a good job teaching. It doesn't matter what the test score says. It doesn't matter what their grade, what their report card says, So any kid that comes back and, the fact that I still have alumni coming back, like,
That shows a lot.
2012.
Mm-hmm.
It's. I think, and I keep telling those. That's what you're gonna remember. That's what's gonna make you keep teaching. Is that first kid that comes back to you and is like, "Thank you, just thank you
Mm-hmm.
for not teaching me how to write a complete sentence, but just thank you for preparing me for this crazy world."
Yeah.
And then just be real with them. Like, you don't tell them your whole stories. Like, you don't let them know everything about, I think, probably about my life now that we aren't teacher student.
Yeah.
But, you have boundaries with them, but you're also real with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I ever lied to you guys or pretended like I wasn't mad or pretended like things didn't piss me off. And I think just being upfront and honest, as well as keeping boundaries, with the kids it's huge, because kids know.
Yeah.
Kids can tell when you're there for them or you're like there for the job.
Mm-hmm.
So just making sure that as a teacher you come in and you just, especially that first month, like, just build bonds with them. Because if for a whole month, you have them and you're building a bond and they enjoy coming to your class, then you can start teaching them.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's powerful.
Yeah.
I'm going to play that back for every teacher because they need to hear that like 3 times. That should be like a part of their orientation.
Yeah.
That snippet.
Because even with admin, like, I know admin and the districts, and you're supposed to do these test scores and get everything done. But, like, you're not going to teach them if they don't want to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you've built a space that is safe for them and they're comfortable in and they want to come to, you're going to get a lot more out of them.
Yeah. What's your biggest hope for students, like, once they leave you and they're out of high school, they're gone?
God, because it's different for each one.
Mm-hmm.
I've had so many kids come through, and a lot of them, some of them I just hope for peace, that they find peace in their life, that they find someone to build them up, find someone that they want to be better for. Yeah, you have me thinking of, like, all these kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and even when I think of you, like, I mean, when I knew you then and now, like, just everything, like, when I had all those Lancers come back to talk to my seniors, like, that was just, like, such a proud moment. Like, all of you had just done so many different things, and it wasn't traditional. Like, some of you went to school, some of you didn't, and I hope that you find as much happiness that I find in teaching, in your journey, and that you, like, impact people along the way. Like, and that you let me know.
Yeah.
And then, they come back every once in a while. Just let me know. Drop me a line. Drop me an email. Everybody has my Instagram.
Yeah.
Most of the kids have my phone number.
I love it. That's so sweet. You're a really powerful person. Before we end the podcast, I do want to talk about how you mentioned I've known you then and I know you now.
Okay.
If you could describe me back in high school, how would you describe me then? And did you think I would make it? Be honest.
100%. 100%. No, I knew you would make it. I knew it was going to be a struggle, and I knew that you were going to, like, falter along the way. And I think that there were people in your life that you may not want to give credit to, but they made you who you were.
Yeah.
And, like, that's one thing that I, like, growing up, I had the worst relationships. Like, I don't choose the best men. But they all taught me something, and they taught me how to be better. And I saw you in your relationships, and I saw you were, like, a scared little girl first when you came, but then when you got to Grant, you put on, like, an exterior. So, like, I always thought you were a fighter. I'm a fighter. Like, I was a brawler, and I just kind of saw that. I'm like, oh, she's going to kick somebody's ass. Like, I always thought you could, and I think other people thought you could, too, if you had to. And you're like, I never fought. And I was like, I really thought you could really beat somebody down. Because I know even in high school, like, I was like a sweet little angel, but I would beat somebody down if you, like, came for my people.
No, I would get mopped. I would get mopped. I'm not a fighter.
And I think you were I think you had you were hard. You were very hard. You had a hard outer shell. And the last time I saw you, when you came back, I think you were the one that probably touched me the most out of that panel. Like the change in what you had done. And you were softer. And not like soft, like a soft person, but just like softer in how you handled things. Like, you weren't jagged.
Mm-hmm.
You were like fluid and open to change and open to learning things and knowing that, like, you knew you were going to keep getting better. And I don't think in high school you knew you were going to keep getting better. And now, like, when I see you and I see your stuff on Instagram, and I just, like, you're open for powerful things to happen to you. You're open for good things to happen to you. And I think you were closed in high school. And you were closed because there was so much going on in your life. Like, you know, you had moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And at 22, it was devastating for me. So I don't know what it was for you as a teenager. You know, your brother, like, went off into, like, military and was gone. Like, you know, I knew your mom and the relationship you guys had. And I think that you put up a outer shell because you needed to. And the friends that you were with, that you hung around, struggled just as much as you did. Mm-hmm. And I think that they got you through those years. You mm-hmm. guys got each other through those years. And whether or not you're close or anything, you still were there for each other during those times. And I think that you've really, like, you don't look at it as a bad thing. You look at it as a growth. And I, like, I'm so proud of you for that. Like, I'm so proud of everything you've done, everything you've accomplished, and everything that you want to accomplish is huge. So I think that you were a lot harder in high school than you are now, and I think you're just much more open to, like, growing and giving of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like, and that's a big deal. And I think, you know, you also will touch people's lives.
I hope so.
In a different way, but just, you know, just as much.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's always so crazy to hear other people describe me and, like, who I was, because I look back and I see myself in a certain light, like when I was in high school, you know. But to hear, like, you, because, like, you, it's kind of like you were like the fly on the wall the whole time, all those 4 years, you know. And to hear you describe me then, it's crazy because you just told me that last night. You know, you were like, you know, you try to act so tough. And he's like, and this world will eat you up because you are soft. And I was just like, I am. Like, that's just who I am. Like, I'm a soft person. But I can also, like, I will also run through walls to get whatever it is that I want. But I definitely am just super, super blessed to, like, have gone through the experiences I've gone through and to make it out where I am unscathed. Mm-hmm. Because...
And it's not unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, because if you go unscathed, you're going to lose what it is that you learned. Yeah. So you have those bumps and you have those bruises and you have those cuts. And that's what, like, makes you able to be who you are today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you definitely have used what you went through and just come out better.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's not a lot of people can say that. I'm not saying that people haven't come out better. They just have kind of, like, stayed the same.
Yeah.
And you continue to want to grow, and that's huge.
Thank you.
That's huge.
Miss Wright, who's your most successful student right now? And what are they doing with their lives?
I don't even know. Because, I mean, I have so many. I mean...
Any, like, established doctors or
anything? We have dentists. We have Michael O'Keefe. He's UCLA doctor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's, like, in the UCLA program. Like, lawyers.
That's awesome.
pilot, own businesses.
Yeah.
Like, the eyelash businesses, like just kids who have their own businesses, and I don't even, like, successful to me isn't like, I have some that are teachers that have taught, like, that are now teachers that, like, warms my heart.
Yeah.
And that's like successful, and some that are great moms and dads. Like, that to me is like successful.
Yeah.
So it depends on like what you want to say with that, what that word is,
Right.
because there's so many kids that are still out there like living their dreams. Like, she's still dancing and going for her doctorate. Like I don't even know how that child has time.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's like, that you're still able to do your dream and go to school and like accomplish so much. So, and the ones getting married and having kids, like, and being good parents, like that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, you've, like, what you've done, like, just across social media and all of your motivational speaking, like, it's huge. And I know you might not don't see it yet, but you'll eventually see it. You'll see the impact that you're making and where you've been and what you're doing. And eventually you're going to see it. And you're going to be like, oh. And I mean, I'd like to be humble, but I do know I've touched kids' lives. And I love that. And it brings me, like, so much joy. Like my reason for living. So I definitely, if they're still living and still want to be a part of my life, that's successful to me.
Yeah.
So I don't even know who I could say is my most successful.
I love that. Well, thank you so much
You're so
for taking
welcome.
time out of your week to come and sit here and have this interview with me, because it was I just had such a good time talking and catching up and going through the past. And I think I learned so much about you that I didn't know. So that's really cool. And I hope that somebody who listens to this, a teacher, a student, that it helps them along their journey in some way, some type of way. Did you want to end this message with this message? Do you want to end this podcast with a message to your students? To your old students, current
students? Oh, gosh. I don't even know if I have, like, a byline. Like, there's so many catchphrases that I say throughout the... just that I love them. Like, I really do. Like, I love each and every kid that has come through. And if I don't remember your name, I'm sorry. I'm getting old. I always remember faces.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you ever need a hug, I'm at 1300 Oxnard.
I love it.
From 7:30 in the morning till sometimes midnight.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I had so much fun.
Yes. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the first episode of the Beyond Her podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below if you enjoyed this episode. Thanks.